I've seen a lot of war. That's a big thing. I was born. Actually, that's not a bad way to start with, if you want. I began. I'm thinking about when I was growing up. My father had been in World War One, and my uncle had those shell cases outside his house in Manchester.
As flower pots.
As flower pots.
All shined up.
They all shined, all polished up.
Beautifully polished.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about your dad, and we talked a little bit about the war, and he was in the war. But that's a big part of your life, right?
Yeah.
And you said to me just before we started, you are, it's hard to believe you're what, you said?
Yeah, 81.
And you feel how old?
I feel probably 40, 35, 40.
Time just flew right by, eh?
Yeah.
Just right by.
I'm lucky to be, lucky to be alive. I feel lucky. And my friends, you, and many others.
Did you, when you were involved with CBS years, did you think you'd retire from them? Like when you look down the road?
No, the thing about it, I was always moving up and changing. I liked that, so I worked for literally everybody. That was great, but of course I got a pension out of the CBC.
Right.
Yeah, moving around was good.
So
and then working in so many countries, from Indonesia. We talked about Sukarno? Have we done that?
No, we haven't done that yet. That's probably in your book. You've talked about it, which is maybe why you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
What about Sukarno? Tell me about that story.
Well, Sukarno was a good story because ABC was very good to me. ABC News. They were the third network at the time, and the head of news said, "We're going to really take a stand on any important story." And then I said, "Oh, great. Well, what's the first one?" And he said, "You're going to Indonesia." I said, "Indonesia? That sounds great." And then he said, "With Cindy Adams." I said, "Cindy Adams? She's a gossip columnist. What's that got to do with journalism?" He said, "Think about it. She wrote the book. She wrote his autobiography. She wrote his biography. And he's, Sukarno's mad about women. So she knows a lot about him. We'll have an advantage if you go there with the crew, with Cindy Adams, and you'll actually get in." And this is actually a very good story, so.
Keep going, I'm listening. So then you went with her.
Yeah, and then are you going to roll at some point?
It's recording now.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, okay. Sorry.
No, sorry, I didn't tell you we started. But keep going. So then Cindy Adams, yeah?
Yeah, well, it was in the 1960s that I started work at ABC News.
Right.
And ABC News was then the third network in ranking, and they wanted to put a lot of money into news. And so one of the very first stories to come up was Cindy Adams, who had done the biography. So off we went. We had a crew of 5, a gaffer in those days, who did nothing. He was a union man. I got rid of him before we left for Indonesia. I couldn't say gaffer in Indonesia. But we had a sound man, a cameraman, a lighting man, and the reporter, me. So off we went to Indonesia. It was the longest journey I've ever taken in my life. And we only had one stop. The one stop was in Lebanon. And after Lebanon, then we went for probably another stop somewhere before we got to Indonesia.
Did you get off the plane in Lebanon?
Yeah, we got off the plane in Lebanon.
Did you hug the ground when you got there? It was so long a flight.
The flight to Lebanon was about 11 hours. Yeah, 10 or 11 hours.
Yeah.
One of the things about being in this profession is you do a lot of traveling. Some of it's great. All of it's really educationally rewarding. Some is dangerous.
Here's a question for you, practical. What makes flying easier? What did you do to make traveling easier?
Well, obviously some basic things. I brought a couple of books, usually on the subject of Indonesia, and also, of course, Cindy Adams' book. when we went to Indonesia, there was a couple of things I was not happy about. Cindy brought her husband with her. And her husband was a very well-known person in the television business. He was the, I guess you could say, he was the union agent. And so I said, you know, it's very odd. We've never traveled this way before. But are you sure we're going to get along fine? Cindy said, absolutely sure. And so with the crew, who weren't so sure, and myself was a little dubious too, we were off. Well, after Lebanon, we took the next leg of the flight, landed in Indonesia on a brilliant, brilliant morning. Because as you're coming down over Indonesia, Indonesia's called the land of 1,000 islands. And it goes like this, sort of like.
Hold it up higher so you can see it.
Yeah,
see the TV screen there?
it goes. Okay.
Can you see? Wait here. I'll move this so you can see that. Can you see the screen?
Well, we can also cut in a picture of.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
Fix your collar, by the way. I noticed it.
Oh yeah, down.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So it's called Indonesia's perfect. Indonesia's called the land of 1,000 islands.
Right.
So tell me about your flight in. You're flying. You're coming in.
Yeah, we're flying and coming in, and then you can see, you know, you see the beauty of it, the green water, right, and the brilliant blue sky, and the sun on landing, and then of course it was unusual. The one thing, the airport was under military law. There was a revolution going on. Sukarno was about to be overthrown, so it was like 10 days of absolute journalistic excitement. But I knew I'd have to conduct it with great care. So one, none of us got killed, and two, we got the story. I suppose it would be the reverse order. We got the story. You know,
Yeah.
it's probably the most important thing.
But for you, it's probably not getting killed, though.
Right.
All right. Because there's a lot of dangerous stories out there, aren't there? So going back just for a second, so traveling to make it easier to bring a book, did you sleep on the plane?
Yeah, I sleep as much as you can, and bringing all the background I could. That's the important thing. With Sukarno, with Cindy Adams and her husband Joey Adams, you know, a lot of my colleagues thought, well, it was kind of odd, an odd relationship. Anyway, we landed. We got into the Hotel Jakarta. And I mean, I had never seen a revolution before, nor had the crew. It was both exciting and rather fearsome because the first thing I ran into was a man called Fred Emery of the Times of London. And on the morning we were going to see Sukarno, Fred Emery and the whole press corps was outside, well, the square, Merdeka, which is called Freedom in Indonesian, Freedom Square, was packed, filled with people demonstrating. Absolutely terrible, lot of noise, and in a way it gave you some fear pressing in. But as we got into the limo to go, Fred Emery said, the window came down, and black windows, and I looked out, Cindy was next to me, and Fred said, Desmond, the story's here, where do you think you're going? I said, I just think there's a story outside this hotel, and off we went. Little did they know, 15 minutes later, we were being ushered into the palace.
Wow.
It was absolutely stunning. And of course, as you went into, first a little bit about Sukarno. He was the Abraham Lincoln, the founder of Canada, you name it. He was the man who created Indonesia out of these dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds of islands, shaped almost like Italy, a foot. It's jutting out into the Pacific Ocean.
What does Indonesia mean? What does it mean, Indonesia? Do you know what the name means?
Well, can you see it's I don't know. Indo obviously means something like India or the Indian continent, but it's not on the Indian continent. It's in the Pacific.
So the palace was pretty spectacular?
Palace is called first we went through Makeda Square, the Freedom Square, then to the palace, which is all white marble, and absolutely dazzling. And as the time was when we actually went, when we started shooting the story, we got there at 6 a.m. in the morning because of the blistering heat. And so the business day starts a lot earlier. And as I met Sukarno, Bung he was called, Bung Sukarno, he had on a fez on his head, and very simply a white tunic. And he was a relatively tall man. And he stepped forward, he greeted me with two hands, he bowed for Cindy, and we started rolling the camera.
You said what was his hat? Was a signature hat for him?
Pardon?
His hat was he was wearing a fez. You said
He was wearing a fez, yeah.
Did he always wear a fez?
Well, only when he was either going out. He didn't sit on the throne wearing a fez, no.
And did he? How long did you interview him for?
Well, as long as I thought decently. We interviewed him over 2 days.
Right.
So we got the very early part of his life, and then I kind of, with the story, tried to break it down into the elements, the beginning, the middle, and the end. That way you don't forget the parts. So we did his early life in a place called Bandung, outside by a day outside of Jakarta. And that was a beautiful drive too.
To Bandung.
Yeah, drove through the foothills and then to Bandung.
Give me just 1 second. There's something that I want to just tweak the lighting a little bit. Sorry. And then I'll come back to the story. Now you said to me before that was the farthest you'd ever flown anywhere.
Yes.
And was it worth the effort?
Oh, it was absolutely worth the effort. It still remains in my mind of all the many, many interviews of well-known people, that he was right up there at the very top of the list. And what a brilliant man to put together such a disparate group of islands.
Did you eat dinner with him?
No.
No. You interviewed him and left.
Interviewed and left. Yeah.
How did he die?
He was in the end. He was killed by the military.
In an assassination victim.
Yeah, that's right.
How long did he rule for? Do you remember?
He ruled for approximately 12 years.
It's pretty good for that part of the country.
It really was.
But then that happens a lot, though. These guys get into power and then they're killed, right?
Yeah.
And then you interviewed probably, who were some of the other great people that you interviewed? Did you ever meet Gandhi?
No, I never interviewed Gandhi.
But you did. You told me last week you did Kennedy. You
I did the candidates, yeah.
Bobby too?
Yeah, did all the candidates.
Yeah, and it's probably a lot of American politics, right? And in terms of leaders, what do you think makes a good leader? You've met many of them.
Yeah, I would say humanity, kindness, decisiveness, the ability to act quickly, to come to a conclusion of your many advisors, and act quickly. I think those are the principal traits.
Was Sukarno good in those areas?
Sukarno was in those areas, so were the candidates.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's an interesting, I'm glad you brought that up, Gary, because Kennedy met Sukarno when he was before he ran for the presidency, and he liked Sukarno. He said, if I win the presidency, I would want to invite you, I would like you to come to my inauguration. And that came about.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you go to Kennedy's inauguration?
I can't